إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله وخليله من خلقه صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Always a pleasure to be back here. Always exciting to see all of you, MashaAllah, on this beautiful Friday. It's nice, beautiful weather outside in this month of May. What more could we want living right now? And that's kind of the topic of today's khutbah, is this reminder that Sheikh Jihad Safir down in LA was giving us the other day. And he was talking about this idea that sometimes we feel like we're in Jannah right now. That we have this crazy idea that we're living in Jannah right now. What did he mean by that? Basically what he was saying is, we have access to so much here at our hands, especially if you have some money, that you live your life as if this is Jannah. Eat whatever you want, go wherever you want, travel wherever you want. For some people, sleep with whoever they want, be whoever you want, boy today, girl tomorrow. We live our life with no restrictions, with no guilt, with no shame, with no sense of responsibility, and as if this is Jannah, that we've made it already, that the test is done, and here it is. We get to spend our money freely for whatever I want today. If I feel like sushi, zing, beep, 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 boop, sushi. If I feel like going to Mexico for a weekend, ding, Mexico, next weekend. Do whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want. And that this is Jannah. And subhanAllah, this, I was thinking about it for myself, and I just kind of immediately became happy and sad. Happy because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Alhamdulillah, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with you making money. There's nothing wrong with you being successful. Many of the Sahaba that established Islam with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were successful in their own businesses. They were leaders in their community. They were regarded as, some of the best business people of that region. They would travel far lands, and they would have fun with their children, and they would marry, and they would live a life, and they would have stress, and they would have ease, and they would have all of it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But this idea that we've already have it all now, this is problematic. Because we forget that this is supposed to be a struggle. That dunya is supposed to be our opportunity to get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Sometimes we forget that, and sometimes I do. And so that was his reminder to us. One of the things that I was reflecting on in this khutbah is, I don't know if you've all heard of Khabib, the famous UFC fighter. If you haven't, please look him up. He's an incredible fighter, mashallah, in UFC, does mixed martial arts, became the champion, undefeated, crushed this guy named Conor McGregor, who was bad-mouthing him and his family in Islam. And Khabib tore the entire UFC to pieces, one by one, every opponent, smashed right through them. And mashallah, he is very dignified when it comes to being Muslim. He's proud of it, and he puts it on his shoulder and does ruku' almost every time after a fight. He's an amazing, incredible fighter. And I was thinking during one of his fights, or Muhammad Ali, or Michael Jordan, or pick an amazing athlete, during their competition, do you think they're looking for a break? Are they thinking about vacation? Are they worried about how much money they're making? Are they worried about getting that sip of water? They don't care. Kyrie Irving, one of the best basketball players in the NBA, was fasting all of Ramadan while he was in the playoffs, the NBA playoffs. Played the game, wouldn't complain. Maghrib would come in, run, grab some water and some dates, run back out onto the court. In this competition, in their head, they're not worried about anything else other than competing at the highest level and winning and completing the game. Dunya is that for us. That's how we need to treat this life. As if we're in this competition. We're in this sprint, in a marathon. We're Olympians representing a big, massive thing of ours. And in this marathon, in this sprint, we should not be worried about taking breaks and stopping for water and worried about whether I'm going to win gold or this or that, or worried about my opponent or worried about this. We're in a marathon. And in the marathon, our psyche, our entire demeanor needs to be about how can I win? How can I get to the finish line? How can I please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of this little finite 70, 60, 80 years that we have, 25 years that you have? How can I finish this and look in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be proud? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be proud of me. Right? We are not living in Jannah. We're far from it. This is supposed to be our training grounds. This is supposed to be our competition, right? For those to compete with each other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this in the Quran. One of the things that I was also reflecting on is kind of what that looks like. What does it look like to be in this competition? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions these group of verses in Surah Al-Furqan about Ibadur Rahman. All right, and he says Ibadur Rahman, and he goes on for a while about describing this group or groups of people that have all these different attributes. We're not going to get into all of them. People more qualified than me can talk about that. But one of the things I wanted to mention is this idea of a slave. This is kind of a crazy concept. If you mention slavery today, it hits people very differently, right? If you're black, if you're African American, if you were African on the West Coast, you might have a very long, horrid history. Most likely have a very long, horrid, horrible history of what this term means to you and your community. To many of us that are not black, we can't comprehend what this means. We can't even come close to the idea of how it hits us. We just read about it in textbooks. We see pictures. We see black community, raising their hands, and they're enraged about what's going on in this country. Rightfully so, obviously. But for everybody else that's not black, especially for Muslims, we look at this and we can't understand. Obviously, it's horrible what happened and this and that. We say this stuff, but we can't understand it. But we're not going to talk about that. I want to talk about this word slave. Now, Man Ali Khan was mentioning this, and I thought it was kind of controversial / interesting. He's saying that there is no job worse than being a slave. Who chooses to be a slave? No one. You don't choose to be a slave. I don't choose to be a slave. Slavery is not a thing that people choose to be. This idea, it's probably the lowest rung of society in terms of job, right? That's the worst possible job, is being a slave to someone, because you have no thought, you have no input. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the highest level of person, the highest level, as a slave. The highest level to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes is someone who is in complete servitude to Allah. Think about that. In one statement, Ibadur Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the job that is least looked upon as something good, right? And something that is the most important job in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibadur Rahman, slaves of the All-Merciful. You can say servant, you can say slave, you could say all different types of definitions of this word. Abid, we can go through all of them. Are you a slave? Are you someone who is a worshiper? There's all, the root word is abd. And this is an interesting concept, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes this group of people, Ibadur Rahman, and there's so many qualities about them that are incredible, as slaves of the All-Merciful. Why is this important? Why do we even talk about this? Because as someone who has a creator, the creator doesn't need anything from you. He doesn't need anything from me. What, you think you're coming here to the masjid is going to help Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any way? Me giving us khutbah up here is going to benefit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any way? It doesn't benefit him at all. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need anything from either of us. But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demands of us, all right, is that, or gives us the opportunity to gain His mercy, and gives us the opportunity to have this everlasting, eternal Jannah. So eternal heaven is on the line right here. And He says, take it. But what I demand of you is that in this life, there are a series of things that you need to do, i.e. worship me, i.e. give to the poor, pray, be a good person, be good to your neighbor, strive for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give away your money, help this, help that, do this, do that. All of these things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands of us to do. Eternal heaven is on the line. None of it will change His stature in any way, whether you do your job or not. None of it benefits Him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to gain this status of Ibadur Rahman, He's requiring you to be a servant, for you to be a slave to Allah. And in this slavery, He's not telling you to go and do horrible things to people. He's telling you to pray. Fix your mental health. Be one with yourself. Fix the problems that you have. Be good to your neighbor. Give. You see, the Creator in this scenario, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Creator, is commanding us to do good things. And in our doing good, gives us eternal reward. So this idea of Ibadur Rahman subhanahu is something very beautiful because, even Sayyidina Isa ibn Maryam, in Surah Maryam, he spoke as an infant. At least that's one of the miracles that we believe in. And the very first thing he says to everybody is, Inni Abdullah. And he goes on to say, I've given this book, and I've been given prophethood, and I'm this, and I'm that. And he's talking as a baby. And Jesus, peace be upon him, is saying, Inni Abdullah. I am the slave of Allah. And all throughout the Quran we see this. Abdur Rahman, Abdullah, Ibadullah, Abidullah. All throughout the Quran we see this. It's an interesting concept when we think that this is Jannah, and that we have access to everything as if this was our heaven, as if this was our eternal heaven. Maybe our mindset needs to change a little. Maybe we need to reframe kind of what we're doing on this earth. Maybe we need to be a bit more mindful about our actions. I talk to my friends and they're like, Amir, what are you doing this weekend? I'm going down to the LA County Fair. Oh, what are you doing next weekend? Oh, next weekend, let me check my schedule. I'm taking the kids to this cool exhibit down the street. What about next weekend? Let me see. I'm doing this with my wife. And Allah is hitting me like every weekend. It's about play and amusement. La'ibun wa lahu. As if the exact description of dunya is the exact description of my life. How do I approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when I know this to be true? When I know this about my life? When I've seen in my life that my whole life is about good food and what I'm doing with my kids this weekend. Brothers and sisters, we need to reframe. And I'm talking to myself first. We need just a little punch in the gut. We need to reframe our thinking about what we're doing here. Because you don't have long and I don't have long. I'm already 38, right? What am I going to live for 200? Right? I don't have that long. So we need to reframe our thinking. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم فيقوم من المستغفرين استغفروا ربكم إنه كان غفارا. It's part of the khutbah where you ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. To close, Sheikh Yasir Qadi was giving a talk about Surah Al-Hajj. And in the surah, we'll read the ayat, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وجاهدوا في الله حق جهاده هو اجتباكم وما جعل عليكم في الدين من حرج ملة أبيكم إبراهيم هو سماكم المسلمين من قبل وفي هذا ليكون الرسول شهيدا عليكم وتكونوا شهداء على الناس فأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة واعتصموا بالله هو مولاكم فنعم المولى ونعم النصير. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is in the English translation, and strive for Allah with the striving that's due to Him. وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ. And strive for Allah with the striving that is due to Him. And this is, the part that we're going to be talking about. He has chosen you and placed upon you in the religion any difficulty. That He's chosen you. Huwa ajtabakum. I'm going to talk about this in a sec. Huwa ajtabakum. A beautiful, beautiful, impactful verse for us. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. And he didn't put any extreme difficulty in the religion. هُوَ اجْتَبَاكُمْ. What does this mean? Well, one of the things that Shaykh Yasir Qadi was mentioning is that اجْتَبَاكُمْ comes from a litany of words, but basically one of the meanings is that, it's like a specific task or like a specialized task or a specialized duty. So if I need to do my taxes, I'm not going to go to an engineer. If I need to do, if I'm building a building, I'm not going to go to, an entertainment professional. I'm going to go to a contractor, right? If I'm doing my taxes, I'm going to go to a tax professional. Ijtabakum means that you're picking the right person for the right job at the right time. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these verses is telling us, huwa ijtabakum, that He has picked you and you and you and you and me and him and her at this time, right now, for this job. You are not in Pakistan. You are not in Palestine. You are not in Iraq. You are not in Nigeria. You are here in Pomona right now doing this job. Ijtabakum means that you were chosen for this, whether it means you're coming to this country from overseas, whether it means you were born here. You were here and you were chosen for this job. And what is this job? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues. And He says, the religion of your father, Ibrahim. Allah named you Muslims, al-Muslimin, before in former scriptures, and in this revelation, right, in the Quran, that the messenger may be a witness over you, and you be witnesses over the people. That the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is a witness over this community, and that we are witnesses over the people. This is our responsibility, and it's a big one. It's a big one, because basically your neighbor has a right to come to you on the day of judgment and say, this guy was living next to me for 25 years, and he never told me anything. I didn't even know he was Muslim. I thought he was from Puerto Rico or something. I don't know. Not to say that there's no Muslims in Puerto Rico. I think you guys understand what I'm saying. They're witnesses over others, that we are in our own right messengers, messenger of the messenger, that we have a right and a responsibility to give the message. And so when we talk about this idea of living in this kind of relative bliss, this dunya, America, it's so sweet and fun and great, we have to remember that we have a responsibility, and that we have to remember we were chosen even to be here at this time. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's grand plan needs to match up with what our grand plan is. And those need to be kind of fixed and realigned. And I remind myself, inshallah, before everyone else, take some time and reflect, and take some time and maybe realign things in our lives so that we can match it up with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan for us. And that we become better people, and that maybe we'll get a chance to be pushed into Jannah, inshallah, and be all together, and we'll have this gathering again in Jannah. Maybe even the Prophet Muhammad will give us a khutbah just to hang out with him and the Sahaba in Jannah and the rest of the Muslims. With that, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us as a strong, united community, and a community that is a witness over our immediate community. Oh Allah, we ask you to help us be a beacon of hope and light in this country and across the world. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to please keep us together, keep us on the straight path. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to keep us from the people that are people of Al-Jannah, who are conscious. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us the qualities of Ibadur Rahman. And we ask you to give us the qualities of the mu'mineen, and so that we can attain the highest levels of Al-Jannah. Oh Allah, we ask you to keep us away from hellfire and everything that even gets us close to it. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to help our brothers and sisters all over the world who are suffering, and we ask you to help the mujahideen that are all over the world fighting for your cause. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, help our brothers and sisters in India and in Kashmir and in Sudan and in Somalia. Oh Allah, we ask you to help our brothers and sisters in Iraq and in Palestine. We ask you to help our brothers and sisters in Syria and all over the world where there's so many problems. Oh Allah, we ask you to bring destruction and humility to the people that are evil and that are fighting against your cause. And we ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make this blessed day accepted for all of us. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa akum as-salam.